Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Executive Edge podcast here. With me today is Jay Gordman from YorCMO. And Jay, welcome to the podcast. Excited to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
So Jay, I've known you for a little while. We've had a chance to catch up, but would love to get a little bit more detail on your trajectory and how you and your partner started YorCMO and how you guys kind of have elevated and taken to the next level here as a firm helping clients, small business owners across the U.S.
Great. Well, so yeah, Joe and I met back in 2016 and really identified a problem that we were seeing in the market where businesses really didn't understand marketing, especially in the new world with the web and everything going on. And they didn't have that key leader in the business, and they were just executing tactics, but not doing it very well. And so we built YorCMO, which is fractional Chief Marketing Officer organization. We have 26 CMOs around the country, and we go in and help companies set their marketing strategy. And it's a major collaboration with their product team, their sales team, and the key executives. And so we built a full process in order to evaluate what's happening today, where is the plan for the next 2 to 5 years, and then we oversee the execution and really collaborate with the key leaders in the company. And so that's where we are today, and I've been growing it ever since 2017.
Congratulations, that's fantastic. Now you mentioned something really important. It's both strategy and 26 CMOs, but also execution. And I think that's the area,
Right.
at least based on some of the clients that I work with, that seems to be an area of opportunity. They either have a partner or somebody that is potentially providing them that strategy, or someone that can execute on it. But having that collaboration of both, tell me a little bit more about why that makes you unique and some of the differentiators that your CMO has in helping small and medium-sized companies.
Absolutely. Yeah. What makes us different is, from an agency, for example, or other, just consultants, so to speak, is by getting involved in truly helping the company set the marketing strategy aligned with the sales and product strategy, and then overseeing the execution and truly leading the marketing team. You have the complete package. And many times, if you just take the consultant and they dump it, here's everything you're doing wrong in a plan, they don't know how to execute it. If you just go the execution route, in many cases, you're bringing people and they're going to execute what they know. And so by blending those two together and ensuring that the plan is right, the execution and the partners you use for execution are the best that they can be, and you continue to evaluate and adjust accordingly, it really differentiates us from many other offerings, even in the consulting and even in the fractional space.
Now, Jay, tell me a little bit, what if the client, and I've got a few of these clients where we have a marketing coordinator, somebody that can potentially execute on strategy. They've got, they want to do some social media, they want to do some other elements. Just the strategy is missing. Do you have engagements where you work with clients that may have a component and augment what's already in place? And if so, give me some scenarios.
Yeah, absolutely. It's completely flexible. The execution part varies client to client. The key, though, is the oversight of that execution. So if they've got a marketing team and we can oversee and lead the marketing team, or if they have partners who may be performing well but could perform better or be better integrated in the plan, we will oversee those folks and really make sure the plan is fully executed properly. But again, that execution varies. We have CMOs spending 20, 25 hours a week with clients, and we have some that are more in advisory and coaching where they're spending 3 to 5 hours a week. And so it varies dramatically. The key is to go in with the right evaluation and audit of the business and the right plan that everybody's aligned to. Without that alignment of sales, marketing, product, ops, everybody, and now without that alignment, it'll never work. So that helps us separate ourselves from folks who simply have a set framework and never flex. Ours is very flexible. It's got to fit the client and what they need.
And I'm looking forward to talking a little bit more about alignment and various different departments, in this case, sales and marketing. Just stepping back for a second, is You mentioned a couple of elements, especially with an audit and some work up front.
Mhm.
Walk me through, I believe you run on EOS. You'd mentioned that to me last time we spoke. And walk me through your proven process, which I know is a key component of EOS, and then walking through exactly how an engagement works with your CMO from end to end on that proven process, if you can.
Absolutely. So we start a lot of what we claim, we'll let people know from where the VTO stops. And so the VTO goes in and says, here's our kind of marketing strategy. And that's when we can really step in. And our proven process is starting with a marketing audit, which are internal interviews, buyer interviews. Now, we could spend some time talking about buyer interviews and how they're really different and how they help the sales team would be a great topic to explore. We look at their competitive landscape, their digital landscape, their paid, owned, and earned media, and everything about the business is step one. We then take that information into step two, which is a foundation strategy session. And what we do is we build out what we call their six fundamentals. Where are you going as a company in a much deeper way than maybe the 3 year picture does? In EOS, kind of takes it to the next execution level. We look at who their buyers are, who their ideal customer profile, who their ideal customers are, and why do they buy from them? Why do they buy from the competition? Let's very clearly delineate that. How do we position the company different? Might be messaging, product, price strategy. We then align sales and marketing. And when we align sales and marketing, we understand the sales process and what the team wants to use for the sales process and how does marketing plug in. Then we set rocks and scorecards for the quarter, and then we bring in the marketing tactics. We always do that last because you need those first five fundamentals first. You can't skip to the end. So an engagement, great example of an engagement is we worked with a high growth doggy daycare company, and they were the Ritz Carlton of doggy daycare franchise coming out of COVID. And we did the audit. One of the unique things about the audit is when we surveyed their customers, and we surveyed over 800 of their customers and found out that what they said was important for choosing doggy daycare and boarding is very different than the owners were thinking. And so by adjusting that and then also uncovering that their go-to-market for their new locations, their go-to-market plan was misaligned in terms of how they should launch, we then built a foundation plan to say, let's fix those things to grow the business. And when we did, the break even in the business, the new stores went from about 15 months to 3 months. And the owners were profitable that much faster. And so then our CMO worked with them and oversaw marketing and actually built them a marketing team. They now have a VP of marketing, a marketing manager, a marketing coordinator. He's getting ready to hire the fourth person and is really acting as a coach and an advisor to this organization now with a fully functioning marketing team, after about 2.5 to 3 years of helping them build it up.
Interesting. So, in the evolution of that engagement, you eventually get to the point where you're replacing yourself, bringing in the right resources as well. And in this particular case, you had your CMO stayed in a coaching consulting capacity. Very interesting, very similar to my practice, as you know, through sales acceleration and the work that we do. Very, very complementary and the same type of work, at least with the clients I work with. It's interesting. There's a few different clients that actually bring me in or bring the services that we've got in. And even though we don't really step into that marketing realm, it's really sales and marketing. Many of them
Right.
really don't have any expertise in house. And they say, hey, listen, I've got a marketing coordinator, or I've got a partner that we signed on 3 or 4 or 5 months ago. Quite honestly, I don't know what to do. I want to make sure that there's some consistency. And they'll take myself or other advisors similar to me and say, can you manage this relationship? And I think for me, whenever I get into those discussions, really what I want to make sure is there's a unified message between what sales and marketing is doing. And this is one of those areas that seems to be a missing component in a lot of small and medium-sized companies is, all right, Mr. or Mrs. CEO, articulate for me your value proposition. What do you go to market with? What are your uniques? Why does somebody buy from you? And they'll give you a really nice, detailed description of why their solution works. And then 20 minutes later, you decide, hey, let me take a look at their content out there on their website or documentation, collateral they have. and you get a slightly different variation. And then if you're lucky enough to go out there and actually get on a sales call or see what their sales team is doing, and it's a completely different messaging. And I look at it, I go, it's just a misaligned value prop that's there. And in most cases, again, when I work with partners, and YorCMO being a very valued partner that we have from Sales Acceleration, making sure that that unification is there. One, from the messaging standpoint, and the second part of it, which I want to kind of pivot to, is sales and marketing collaboration as it relates to the pipeline and the funnel. At least what I've seen more recently is time and structure has gotten it to the point where marketing is much more involved and the client engagement is much more mature when they start speaking to us. So tell me a little bit about how you work with, whether it be other fractional folks like myself from a sales standpoint, or their existing sales team in a collaborative effort.
Yeah, so to kind of take a step back, a lot of times you'll find those value props are all from the perspective of the business owner, the sales team, the marketing coordinator, and nobody has asked the client. And so start with the customer in mind and with the buyer interviews, understand that, because then we truly understand the triggers. We understand the steps they take, the message, how do they compare people against like options, what are key messages that resonate, so on and so forth. And so we can bring that into a sales process. And into your question about in that pipeline, where does marketing and work and how do we ensure alignment? Well, the first thing we do is we visit with the sales team and ask them, what are the steps of your sale and which are the most important steps that are most likely to get a closed deal? So we have to understand that. So we're all going after the same thing. And obviously it's a closed sale, but there's some, what we call X factors along those pipelines. And if you're not getting that X factor nailed, you're never going to get to the next step. And so what is that pipeline? Is everybody using the same terminology of what they call each step? Is the CRM set up, so everybody's using the same terminology? And then marketing's job is to help get more people into that pipeline and help the salespeople move those folks forward. And especially in long sales cycles, there could be months between steps. And so how can marketing continue to build credibility and value within those steps of the sale? And so one example, we have a client we've worked with in the construction business. They condo complexes and redo the outside of the condo complexes, the building envelope. And they have several steps of the sale that are months apart. And the first one is to get them to do an evaluation. And that's a pretty easy step. But when you come out of that and you have to start presenting to the homeowners, if you don't do it the right way, while the board might be fully involved, all the homeowners start to gossip and it can derail the whole thing. And so to help the sales team communicate what's going on, what's happening, both to the homeowners, because they're decision makers, along with the board of those condo complexes, it allows you to move the sales process forward rather than running into those barriers. That's such a critical barrier when homeowners are all of a sudden get on the defensive when they hear they're going to be spending money on their complex. And so how do you work through that and then go through those different steps so that you kind of nurture everyone along? And content, transparency, understanding the steps and where people's mindset were matter dramatically in the process.
Great. Thank you, Jay. As we get involved more and more in marketing partners or fractional marketing resources, what I hear clients saying on a regular basis is, I just need more leads. I need someone to help me get more leads.
Right.
And I think I know the answer to this, but love to hear a little bit more about when you get an engagement and the majority of it is all structured around, where are the leads, when you're going to get me leads, and how do we get these leads? Tell me a little about that and your strategy there, and what makes that an engagement that is fruitful and maximizing that opportunity.
Yeah, so it all starts with that. What is a qualified lead, right? What is quality to you? Just generating leads is not, we like to make sure sales team knows that's not the ultimate goal for us. It's the quality leads that are actually going to give them a better with a customer, prospect. So we want to make sure that we're all aligned first and foremost. And then we have a variety of tools depending on the industry. There might be some heavy demand gen in industries that are SaaS offerings, for example, that are really demand gen, demo driven, freemium options, and it's very transactional. And there's others, like I explained with the construction company, that are very relationship driven. And so webinars, almost, having a webinar with a client and their folks during the sales process is very important. Upfront webinars to develop relationships is a whole different kind of lead. So we need to be lead focused as marketers, because that's what's going to ultimately drive the revenue. And if people are not aligned that sales marketing has to help drive sales, which a lot of agencies are, they focus on the visits and how long did you spend on the site and all that. The reality is those are all vanity metrics. It has to be, how do you drive sales? And it starts with the leads. And so again, we will build a lead funnel and top of funnel campaign, but it has to be based on the company and what they need versus just, we apply all of these same tactics to everyone. That doesn't make sense.
Let me backtrack here for a second back to the growth of the company. And you had mentioned to me earlier you have 26 CMOs, which is fantastic growth. I think when we first started talking earlier, probably over the last year and a half, I thought you had 10 and 12 and seen some great growth there. How are you noticing the growth of the CMO community? If there's anybody out there that might be listening to this and is actually interested in partnering and being part of this organization, what's important to you in selecting the proper CMOs for clients?
A great question. So we're looking for folks who are marketing leaders. They need to have 7 to 10 years of marketing leadership, and which would translate to probably 20 to 25 years of marketing experience. And we're looking for folks who are ready to leave the workforce. They're burnt out. They're tired of marketing being the first to get beat up in the budget conversations. They're tired of the race, all the acquisitions and all those things. People are really ready to take that knowledge that they've developed over the years and put it to use for themselves and live the lifestyle that they want to live. And so those are the types of people that really get excited to work with us. And the nice thing about our approach is that we want to build the perfect practice for them. And we may have a CMO that wants one client and that's it. We have other CMOs who want 5 clients and are willing to work, 60 hours a week. And so it's all got to be based on what they want for their practice. And then our job with our team is to help them achieve that with all the different tools and resources, partnerships that we have. So it's really, those are the primary. The secondary is that there are people who have gone out during the Great Resignation and hung the fractional shingle. And they get stuck into kind of low value projects. It's hard for them to grow their network. They've never been trained on how to grow their network. And as you and I both know, especially from what SalesX really pushes people when they start, is you've got to build that network. And how do you do it? And walk people through the process. So if people are willing to go do that work, they'll probably see their fractional practice turn around at the same time, because a lot of times they're stuck with just a small client. So that's the secondary group, are the fractionals who are really ready to understand a system and a process to grow their practice.
Yeah, you hit on an item that's very near and dear to my heart. It's how do you grow business and how do you sell in this environment now where, tactics that were working 10 and 15 years ago, smile and dial and pick up the phone and truly cold outreach. I'm not saying it's not effective. It's not as effective. And in this day and age, I think the really good salespeople, the really good sales organizations that are successful are investing a lot of time and effort into network centers of influence, individuals that can help you get to your end client. I know how you and I operate. It's rarely do I end up speaking to a business owner because in 90% of the cases, they may not have a need. They've got a great sales organization. They're growing by leaps and bounds, which is fantastic. The opportunities that we can probably help are folks that have, we don't have a set sales strategy. We don't have a set marketing strategy. We're having a hard time executing on this. Or they've got a fantastic marketing strategy and they're bringing in lots of opportunities. And this is the missing element, which is, I don't have a sales team that can actually execute on this. And I've got a large investment coming in on marketing qualified opportunities. I just can't turn them into sales qualified opportunities. So for me, there's a lot of times where, partnership with someone that can help from a marketing standpoint is, listen, I'm here to help you out because if I can help the team bring this over the finish line, your statistics and your ROI and all of those elements end up coming in extremely high, and hopefully the engagements go along longer, and vice versa. With myself and my colleagues and the advisors in the SalesX community, we help companies build out sales structure, sales process, end-to-end KPIs and accountability. We can build the best sales structure possible and then hire somebody to execute there. If there isn't an element, unless again, they're working the network center of influence strategy very well, there needs to be some type of a messaging platform there too, where, again, we've talked about this, 60 to 65% of the education and the buying is being done in the funnel by marketing resources. The client wants to speak to somebody when they're ready to purchase or ready to engage further. So it's the same thing. It's if you don't have both ends of the sales and marketing engine working really well and collaborating, I think neither one of them is really going to work very effectively.
And it has to be fully aligned. What we're saying up front, as people are doing their research, has to make sense by the time they get to the salesperson. If the salesperson's expected a different conversation and marketing delivered them somebody with the that's not aligned to the message, it was all for nothing. And so, by having that up front, so as people are, searching the web, asking for referrals, asking for advice, there's endless amounts of people in EO and Vistage and other channels posting every day asking for sales and marketing help and getting referred in. And so by being out in all those channels with the right message, so that when people are ready, the hooks are in the water for them, and then draw them into the sales process at the time that they're ready is important. And there may be times that they are a marketing qualified lead, and we're aware of them for 6 months, 8 months. They're just not ready to move forward, but it's on their mind. We need to stay in front of them. We need to keep nurturing them. And then when they're ready to really make begin to have a conversation, then bring in the salesperson. So it's a higher value to the salesperson rather than them, literally trying to convince somebody to make a decision when we know they're 6 or 8 months away because maybe they're just strategically not there. And so it all has to be fully integrated. And as you said, cold outreach in some industries is not as productive as it used to be. And so what are all these other tools to be out there in the places people are? Because they're not answering their phone in their office, but they are online, they are in the networks, they are asking for help, and let's be.
Thanks, Jay. Want to hit on a couple of more items if we can here in our time together. One is you're running on EOS, and how long have you been running on that platform for that operating system?
Oh, since we started the company back in 2017, we just my partner Joe was a EOS implementer part-time, and we just and I was using a similar approach, and we said, that's the right tool to use, and we've been using it ever since.
Okay. You've answered my second question, which is who helped you implement EOS? So in this case, I'm presuming it's Joe.
Yeah, Joe got us started, and then we were fortunate enough that he and another friend of his each had businesses that wanted to run on EOS, and so Joe was good to help them and implement that there, and then their owner, who was also EOS trained, then would do ours, so that it would allow us to, when we had a quarterly meeting, have somebody facilitate those rather than Joe having to try to balance being an implementer and a business owner.
In the business, are you sitting in the visionary or the integrator seat, or neither?
So I'm typically considered in the integrator seat. Joe's typically in the visionary seat, but because we're partners in the business, we approach it a little different. It's not like visionary top down to integrator. In ours, it's more of a side by side collaboration, but I oversee more of the operations side of the business in bringing things to life. And Joe, who's a great idea person, is bringing fresh ideas, really driving our sales and business development side of things, and spending a lot of time in that part of the business.
Now, you said EO earlier. I know Joe is pretty involved. Are you both in EO, or do you guys go to various different other peer group organizations?
He's involved heavily in EO and just was recently the president of EO Nebraska, or EO, I think Omaha, maybe Nebraska. And I'm in Vistage, so I'm heavily involved in Vistage here in Omaha in the Midwest with all the different groups that are here, and just continuing to expand my reach. And because these networks have these national boards that you can, these networks that you can be part of, there's endless ways to connect to people. which is fantastic. And then we're heavily involved in quite a bit of fractional leadership activity. Joe, one of our CMOs, sits on a board of groups of fractionals that are trying to bring fractionals together to help them grow just as an industry of fractionals. So we're heavily involved in industries like that or networks like that.
Right. Yeah, I've seen you comment and add some notes on the Vistage boards. I've been in Vistage for the last couple of years. Love the
Mm-hmm.
community, love the peer group element of it. But of course, there's also the byproduct where it does give you opportunities to be able to help others that may have a need, and be able to
Mm-hmm.
generate some opportunities for you and your business as well. But Vistage has been outstanding for me. I'm really glad I got a chance to be part of a trusted advisor group in the Vistage community, and it sounds like you're very involved in that environment as well.
Yeah, I love my peer group and my group. They're kind of like my board of directors in a small way. My personal board of directors. And yeah, just being a trusted advisor in this group here in Nebraska has been fantastic.
Great. Let's see if we can spend a couple of minutes talking about the partnership that you've got with Sales Acceleration. And
Mm-hmm.
for anybody on the podcast that's not aware, Sales Acceleration has over 190 fractional CROs, fractional VP of sales, similar to myself, and colleagues that I've got all over the country. And we've got a partnership with YorCMO and have for a period of time now. Tell me a little bit about the partnership, the relationship you've got, and some of the opportunities that you've heard where there's been folks from the 26 CMOs in the field that you have and the 190 plus advisors we have on the SalesX side.
Yeah, it's been a great relationship that started last summer, fall, probably about a year ago. And, it all started about really making connections between the CMOs and the CROs or VP of sales, like you talked about, because there's so many times we run in a situation where a sales team and the sales organization is just not strong enough to really grow. Or we've seen the flip side where we've been brought in from the marketing aspect. And so it just made real sense for us to collaborate on that. And so initially just helping our CMOs connect with the SalesX advisors and having the sales acceleration advisors reach out to our group. And so we were just started from that perspective. We were at your big event in January, which was
Yeah.
fantastic. And then it began to evolve. It continues to evolve where we do quite a bit of buyer interviews, as I mentioned, helping companies truly understand what their buyers are thinking when they get into the sales process and what triggers their need and how they make decisions. And so we did an engagement for SalesX to show how that works. And we did buyer interviews for a certain segment of the SalesX population and rolled out that to the SalesX team. So as you're in your engagements, rather than trying to maybe bring on a full fractional CMO in addition to what you're doing, we can step in a very simple way and do these interviews and arm the sales team with information and buyer insights they've never had before. And it's a great entree and a great value for the sales X advisors for their clients. Because a lot of times, again, they what they know about their buyers is what they've discussed internally and they've observed internally, but they're missing a whole layer of information and insight. So that's been a great evolution. And then I know Joe and your team are continuing to look at opportunities of how do we better integrate sales and marketing and work together on those types of things.
That's great. That's really well done. Are your CMOs, and we talked about EOS, so obviously we run on EOS as well. Proud to be running on EOS for multiple years now, and of course we're also part of the same community with the same private equity firm as EOS as well. When you work with clients that are running on EOS, I guess the first question I'll have is, what percentage of your clients are actually utilizing EOS, and is that a target market for you?
I would say more than half of ours are using EOS in some form or fashion, some better than others, but I would say about more than half. And the ones who aren't are kind of proven process and structure and cadence and consistency begins to give them insight of what it could look like because it flows very similarly. And many times then we will introduce them to an EOS implementer to help them rather than tops down. It's almost like marketing's bringing it up to the leadership, which is kind of interesting. And so we're bringing those folks into the mix, in terms of EOS. So many of them do. And then we integrate right back into the VTO. When we start talking about target audiences, We bring those insights into those audiences. We can help fill out the 3-year picture and bring in a marketing picture. We sit in the L10 meeting many times as a member of the leadership team. And so we get involved in ways that the typical consultant doesn't. We have a much better insight in the business, and we find if there's operational deficiencies that marketing might be able to add some insights to, we will. One example is we had a client in the dental space who was missing a huge number of people after COVID, and they couldn't fill appointments. And if you can't fill appointments, you're not going to drive revenue. And so what we did was shifted the marketing budget over to the hiring budget and help them better market their open positions and develop a hiring brand in a way they've never had before to make them more appealing to that audience of employees and help them fill their empty spots, which then drove revenue, forward. And that was all because our CMO sitting in the L10 meeting.
So many synergies with what we both do, and I'm glad you answered it the way you did. Same thing in my case. With in my case, it's 90% of my clients are running on EOS, and if they're investing in that type of a process philosophy, process documentation, accountability, then likely they're going to want to do something with either sales acceleration, YorCMO, or any other fractional elements, which is, at least what I explain to a lot of the EOS clients are, you're building this up at your 10,000 foot level across your leadership team and driving it down through the organization. I'll come in and hopefully take that execution directly into sales and sit in that. It's interesting, in EOS, it's got a sales and marketing head seat. So in some cases, we'll have 2 of us there, 2 fractionals. In other cases, it'll be one of the 2 of us, either myself or a colleague, like one of your fractional CMOs, sitting in that seat and having that accountability chart have sales and marketing underneath it. But being part of those leadership L10s is such a crucial part of how to build out the proper strategy, how to execute on it, how to communicate and collaborate, making sure there's consistency on that value prop. So that's a major element that drives a lot of my engagements forward, is allowing you to be part of that leadership team and that dynamic of the SLT and the EOS world.
Absolutely.
As we wrap up here, give me a little bit more detail, if you'd like to. Anything else you want to add on your CMO, the markets you serve, or who you support?
Yeah, so we support over 50 industries. So with our 26 CMOs, there's not many industries we don't cover. And with our kind of ideal clients, similar to SalesX, which is typically between 5 and 50 million, we do have some on the upper and it gets over 100 million, and we have a handful of well-funded startups. But that target audience, similar to SalesX, is really our sweet spot. And again, across all those industries. And so, people are just feeling stuck and not know where to go next. We always just recommend having a cup of coffee with a CMO and just see what's going on. And sometimes we're a good fit. Other times we find quite a bit. They just, they don't have a sales organization. And like you said, they're getting enough leads. Maybe they're getting enough activity for today's business, but they're not closing it, and they're not taking advantage of what they have, and they need to bring in that person. So it's always interesting just to sit down in a casual kind of cup of coffee feel and really collaborate and understand where do they need to go. And because we have such amazing programs with SalesX and others in the CFO world and the COO world, many times we can point people the right direction, even if we're not the right fit. So we always love to just help all the business owners of the world. We're all business owners, and we want to help each other grow. So that's really the mentality that we bring to it.
Yeah. In closing the conversation, it's interesting. We mentioned trusted advisors and what we do with clients. The majority of the time, it's interesting. It was one of my first clients that I received. It wasn't as much. They were hiring me. They were probably looking to hire me in that fractional CMO role. But in a period of time, they had needs for other areas in the business. And this comes back to that center of influence and having a good, strong network of individuals there. Not just they can refer you in, but there are resources for your clients. And I remember that first client I worked with, I recommended at least 2 other functional parts of the organization, including an EOS implementer, because they needed that help. And very quickly, the client, I remember talking to them about a month later on, I said, what was a differentiator? Why did you select me? I know you were looking at a few. And right away they said, well, we liked what we heard, and I think you were going to be a nice addition to our team and our leadership team. But quite honestly, when you started with that serve first mentality and connected us with some folks that really rounded us out, you understood what our environment was. That really took you to more of a trusted advisor than it did just a fractional CRO. And I think that's the
Yeah.
element that a lot of people seem to miss sometimes. Folks that do this line of work is it's not just about what somebody else is going to be able to get you. It's what's the value in that relationship and how can they represent you and your brand in front of your clients or their clients in this case.
You say it so well. The fractional, where we start as fractional, is a great place to begin. It's a great entree into a company, but the pinnacle is that being that trusted advisor. And when that business owner, and it's so hard to own a business today, needs advice that may hit other areas, and we have relationships from other clients and other just our networking that we can offer to them to help their business. That trusted advisor mentality and ultimately that status with that owner is the pinnacle we should all be striving for, beyond just being a fractional CMO.
Thanks so much, Jay. Jay, pleasure having you on the podcast. Great speaking to you. I'm looking forward to seeing you. Hopefully we'll see you again in January, hopefully
Absolutely.
before then. But we love the partnership with YorCMO. Enjoyed speaking to you, and have a fantastic afternoon. And thanks so much for being on the Executive Edge podcast.
Thank you for having me. Look forward to seeing you.